Hello, Matt here again from RetroOnly.com. Today we will be talking about how much NES games used to cost in the 1980s. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos like this. Have you ever wondered how much NES games cost in the 1980s? Well, you are not alone. We have been getting this question a lot recently as more and more people are looking to purchase their own original NES. So, how much did NES games cost in the 1980s? NES games in the 80s would range in price from $10 for budget games to up to $60 for the best games available. On average though, people would normally pay $40 for a new NES game. If you keep watching, we will go more into depth about what games were the more expensive ones and why they were that way, as well as share a little bit of history about the cost of NES games throughout their history. Cost for NES games. When a new game would come out for any console, it was always quite expensive. This is when we would see games in the 80s selling for $60. Although $60 may not seem like a ton for a game, in today's money that is over $200 just for one game. The good news was that if you were patient and willing to wait a little while, the price for that new game would often come down $10 to $20. This is when many people would purchase their games. Some people even waited until others had gotten tired of them or had passed them and moved on to different games and then bought them used. Once people began to sell the games, most of the time their friends who could not afford to buy it new would purchase it secondhand. If we look at the SNES games, we will notice that these games were even more expensive than any other games. This was because they had the latest chip technology and because they were games that had the 24 or 32 megabit cartridge. So how much did the NES cost when it was released? The Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, had many designs that came after the upgrade. Over the years, we have had many different people ask about the price directly. When the NES first released in 1985, it was way beyond anything else on the market at that time. It was launched at the FAO Schwarz in New York City and got the attention of many people. It retailed from around $179 to $199. For about 6 months, the Nintendo Entertainment System was the only game system that existed on the market, and it had no competitors. Because it was so advanced and there were no competitors, there was no need to advertise or promote it. It didn't take long for the NES to capture the hearts of many people and to mark its name on every heart. It didn't matter if it was an adult or a kid, everyone was in love with the NES. Because some of the popular games were more expensive, some people decided to purchase other not so popular games that were only around $10. Even though they had an NES, they decided to not purchase the expensive games, but rather wait and get them cheaper or try and buy them secondhand. Even though the games and game system were expensive back in the 80s and 90s, they are not very expensive today. Because of this, some young adults are going back to their childhood and buying the games and console to relive their childhood and play some pretty unique and fun games from years gone by. History of Nintendo games. When we talk about the history of Nintendo games, it wouldn't be wrong if we made the statement that those were the most expensive games of that era. The Nintendo Entertainment System was released in the US in 1985. And it was the release of the NES that caused the gaming revolution to begin. The NES used an 8-bit gaming system with some video game cartridges. IGN has even declared it to be the best video game console of all time. The success of the NES Classic Edition has made and developed the love for Nintendo's classic console in every heart, which is still alive today. Whether you have a gaming system in your closet or you just bought one, the NES is worth playing. Next, we will discuss some of the greatest hits of the NES from the 1980s. The top 15 best Nintendo games are Kung Fu 1985, Final Fantasy 1987, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, 1987, River City Ransom, 1989, Castlevania, 1986, Kirby's Adventure, 1993, Mega Man 3, 1990, DuckTales, 1989, Tecmo Bowl, 1991, Metroid, 1986, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, 1987, Super Mario Bros. 3, 1990, The Legend of Zelda, 1986, Tetris, 1989, and Duck Hunt / Super Mario Bros. In 1988. The top 15 underrated Nintendo games are Crystalis, 1990, The Guardian Legend, 1989, Little Nemo, The Dream Master, 1990, Adventures of Lola, 1989, Star Tropics, 1990, Little Samson, 1992, Ikari Warriors, 1987, Clash at Demon Head, 1990, Gun Knack, 1991, Tiny Toon Adventures, 1991, River City Ransom, 1989, Magic of Scheherazade, 1989, Adventure Island, 1988, and the Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout in 1990. The Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, is in many people's words the greatest video game console that was ever made on this planet. Many people were excited about its release, and even today it's still alive in the hearts of many people as well as in their living room or game rooms. The NES ruled the market by improving the quality and developing every game to its fullest potential. The NES had the latest features, the most advanced graphics, and all of the vibrant colors. All of these components have made it super attractive for gamers then and now. The original NES has a wide range of games that no matter who you are able to find a game that you love to sit down and play. If you dig out your old machine, you may even find an old game that is worth some money now, as some of the games are now collector's items. So, let's wrap it up. Now that we know how much NES games cost in the 80s, we can better assess the value of the games we want to buy today. Because the system was so popular in the 80s and 90s, people are still able to sell the original NES for over $100. I would say that the Nintendo company sure does know how to make something that holds its value very well. Although the NES is not available for sale today, Nintendo did release the NES Mini Console. This console comes preloaded with the best games on the NES as well as 2 controllers. Don't be fooled by the tiny size of this machine. It definitely holds all the fun you had playing the original Nintendo as a kid or adult. You can find a link to learn more about the miniature NES in the description below. Even though this machine looks like the original, it has the capacity of connecting wireless controllers to it, as well as being connected to your TV with an HDMI port. The NES is definitely one of the most, if not the most, beloved game system ever made. This game system is still popular, even after 35 plus years since its release. This has been Matt from RetroOnly.com.